Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg in Las Vegas. It's happy Wednesday morning, and we're looking forward to some conference championship football games this weekend, as well as some NFL games we're coming down to the end. We're starting to separate the pretenders from the contenders. College basketball is rolling along, and Hank, you've been red hot in just about everything. But college basketball is, you're doing well. I think you were 4-2 or 5-2 last night.
Yeah, I've just been getting by in NFL lately. Although I had a winning week last week. But, you know, I noticed that the guys in the lead on the Westgate contest, if you look at their consensus picks over the last month, they have not been above 500, which is kind of interesting. But, you know, there have been a lot of surprises in the NFL, and a lot of some weird games. It's interesting, for example, to me, that you've got this week, I think the top attraction is going to be the Chargers against Pittsburgh. Well, I would like to put up a prop as to who's going to throw the first pick in that game, because both of those guys have been throwing the ball away. Rivers, the week before last, had a bad game. Although last week, against a nothing team, yeah, he had a record that was set by Tannehill, which means nothing, of complete record number of completions in a row. And in the last 2 weeks, Roethlisberger has thrown 5 interceptions.
Wow.
And including the one that could have tied the game last week, where he just threw the ball ridiculously terribly, where he had a guy open and underthrew him badly. And I'm beginning to wonder about it a little bit. And so here you have a game that should be high scoring. The weather's not going to be that bad there. And I'm curious to see what these two quarterbacks are going to do in this game.
Well, these are two older hands. Obviously, they've both been around about 15 years. And, you know, Pittsburgh, let's talk about Pittsburgh first of all. Over the years, Pittsburgh has mysteriously not shown up against teams that they should show up against. I don't know what the reason for that is, mental motivation, whatever. But they shouldn't have beaten Jacksonville. I mean, they played terrible the whole game. And then they came out with a win. And last week, like you just mentioned, they went to Denver. I mean, that's a tough road trip. You go to Jacksonville, then to Denver. But they didn't play all that well there either. So now they're coming home, and they do play better at home. We all know that. And the Chargers are going on the road, and they have a little bit of injury problem now to deal with. You know,
But Gordon, that's pretty serious.
it can
It's a
be.
big part of their offense.
Yeah, it is.
Although they have another running back, Ekeler, who's pretty good.
They'll probably sign somebody else to fill the shoes, fill that roster spot. But you know, they got Bosa back a couple of weeks ago, and you've always said how good he is, and how that's a pretty good team. That Charger team is really, really good. That's going to be a war. Those two quarterbacks can light it up. They got the wide receivers. They got the runners. Of course, with Gordon there, they're better. But you know, if the weather is good, you never know. Right now, I just looked
But
at
not
it.
bad.
For now, it's not bad, unless it changes.
Well, the forecast for Sunday is cloudy, and the temperature will be in the 40s, I think. It's not terrible. But I got to tell you something about Rivers. He has a habit of not showing up in high-profile games, if it's prime time or the big game of the week. So we'll see.
Well, that is true. That goes back over the 15 years he's been in the league. He has not shown up in primetime games. There's something about the Charger franchise going all the way back to the days when they had LT and et cetera, and everybody thought they were the best team in football, but this has never produced. But the Steelers, on the other hand, have produced. They have gotten deep into the playoffs, and they've won 2 Super Bowls. It's going to be that definitely is a big marquee matchup for the week. No question about that. We got one coming up this Thursday with the Saints visiting the Cowboys, and the Saints are a 7.5 point favorite in that game, and that's Drew Brees is just having an incredible year. He's connecting on about 80% of his passes. The running game, they have 2 good running backs. Their offensive line's playing well. Their defense is stepping up. Dallas comes in with the new wide receiver. They're playing a little bit better. And right now, in Dallas is looking pretty good in the NFC East, where of course the Giants are out of it. Philadelphia squeaked out that win the other day. But you think Washington or Dallas will end up on top of that heap?
I think those are the 2 teams to watch. I think Washington lost their quarterback, but he wasn't playing great. Adrian Peterson is having a huge year for them. If they can get some people healthy in their offensive line, and I think Washington is a threat against Dallas, but I prefer Dallas right now. But I'm not sure that I think Dallas has a tough schedule, and this is the beginning of it. Going on a road or they're home rather, but playing against New Orleans, who actually plays better on the road than they do at home as far as scoring is concerned. They're not going to stop them, and I just think that New Orleans is right. I think New Orleans is the best team in the league right now. I think they're playing better than the Rams. They don't have a weak spot. I think right now they're the team to beat. They're superior.
I agree. I was fortunate enough to bet them to win the Super Bowl before the league season started, and they're living up to it. Hopefully, knock on wood, they don't have any major injuries. The Houston Texans put a spanking on the Titans the other night. I was wrong. I thought that game would be closer. It started off 10-0, but then they blew the socks off of them. This Texan team is starting to look pretty damn good. You give them a chance to go deep into the playoffs in the AFC. I mean, you got some good AFC teams out there to battle with. You got the Chiefs. You always have the Patriots, of course, the Steelers. Texans are now in the mix. The Colts are in the mix. How good is this Texan team, in your opinion?
The Ravens aren't playing too bad right now either. But I think they're very good, and I think maybe we prejudged O'Brien poorly. We were down on him early in the year, but he's really turned that team around. They're a long winning streak now. The quarterback is playing very well. They've gotten him to be more patient. He runs judiciously now. They've got a good running game. Lamar, he really, I'll tell you something. There's another guy who the Dolphins had, who they let get away for nothing, and look at what he's done there. And he's become, he has the 2 longest runs, I think, in the league. 2 runs over 95 yards is amazing, and he's got great speed. And they've got good receivers. And their offense is in good shape, and they've got 3 of the top defensive players in the league. They're loaded.
Yeah, they really are. The Colts didn't play exceptionally well last week when they played Miami. But a lot of people.
There's a story out of Miami that the owner is really upset with the coach right now after the way they blew the game against the Colts. And he's a Michigan guy. So the story I saw out of Miami was that he, when the season is over, he wants to talk to Harbaugh.
Well, How do you feel about that move? I know you have very close.
I think that owner's a great guy in real estate, and he should just stick to real estate. He's got that organization so screwed up. He hired the wrong guy to run the organization and make the personnel decisions, who ruined the Jets. He's done a good job of ruining that franchise, and they're just a bunch of losers right now. And whatever move he makes will not work out.
Wow. Well, that's. I go back to the Miami and the Dan Marino days, but I don't think they've had much success since he left. Or Don Shula.
You left out a pretty important, Shula. Don't forget him.
Well, Shula was amazing. He was just he was a winner from the get-go. That guy. Anything in college hoops you want to talk about, or?
Well, right now the series is going on between the Big Ten and the ACC, and there were a couple of games that were pretty good yesterday, and Louisville played a great game against Michigan State. Went right down to the wire. It was a hell of a game. Of course, Duke came back strong. Indiana's got two prime-time guys on their team, and Duke really shut them down. As long as Duke is running, but defensively they played very well too. And they by 25 points going into the second half, and they held a 25-point lead, and they were only a 15.5-point favorite in the game. North Carolina State played a pretty good game last night. So, the ACC teams, you're going to see Virginia. They're real good. Play against whoever their opponent is. I like Michigan as a strong Big Ten entry. Nobody talks about them very much, but they're really loaded. So that's a good series, and that's going on this week. That's a big attraction. And, ESPN, I think, has those games.
You got
the other. Sorry, what?
You got North Carolina playing. Is it North Carolina, Michigan today?
Yeah, watch out for Michigan. Michigan is really good. The other games that are the college football games. Little Tennessee, look out for that team. I like that team. They've been very good to me. But there's two big games. There's Alabama against Georgia, and you finally can get Alabama around 2 touchdowns. And Georgia has given them some trouble in the past, but I'll tell you, this Alabama team is different. And the other game is Texas and Oklahoma, where you won't see any defense. They'll just keep scoring, and Texas can keep pace with Oklahoma. That's going to be a very entertaining game to watch.
I agree, and Oklahoma's an 8-point favorite in that game, and it's gonna probably, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong, it's gonna come down to Oklahoma or Ohio State most likely getting into that 4th position in the playoffs. And
I don't agree. I'm going to not correct you, but I'm going to disagree. I think Ohio State's in trouble this week. Northwestern has. I'm going to give you just one stat on Northwestern. 11 of their games, the dog has covered. 11 out of 12 games that they've played. They are extremely well coached. Ohio State is just in position for a letdown because they aren't disciplined. And I don't know what happened in that Michigan game, but they were a different team against Michigan. And they're up against a pretty good Northwestern team. And I don't write Northwestern off in that game. I think that's going to be a lot tougher than people think. And I don't think Ohio State is good enough off their season this year to warrant the 4th spot. We'll see.
okay,
I mean, there are other teams that that are pretty good. Alabama and Georgia. Whoever wins that game, if it's a close enough game, both of those teams might go.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What happens if Ohio State and Oklahoma both lose? Straight up. I'm not talking spreads. I'm talking straight up. Then what do you think happens?
Well, Oklahoma has an earlier loss and Ohio State has an earlier loss, so they both could be out. And Washington, if they have a big game this week, might might be a consideration. Washington's pretty good right now.
Yeah,
They'd have a legitimate argument.
Here's a funny one. What would happen? What has to happen for this undefeated Florida team to get in? I know they don't play a schedule anybody gives respect to, but the UCF.
Well, the quarterback is out. Now, that hurts their chance. He got hurt last week. He's done.
Yeah, that's right. So that's interesting, and it's going to come down to most likely who's going to bring the best TV ratings, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, you're right. Ohio State looks to have a letdown off of the 62-point performance against Michigan, and Texas and Oklahoma should be a shootout. 78-point line on the over and under already, and it'll probably go up.
And they played each other already, and it was that kind of a game before.
Right. That's going to be an interesting week. I'm looking forward to it, and the pros will. Well, we start the pro week off with the big game with Seattle, or excuse me, the Saints and the Cowboys. That's a marquee game on Thursday night.
You just mentioned Seattle. And Seattle has really been playing well lately. He's done a heck of a job with that team this year, which, they started off poorly, and they've had all kinds of injuries to fight through, but they've developed an identity, and that is strong run game, strong defense, and Russell has really benefited by that running game. And he's not running as much as he used to, and he's become a more patient quarterback. And, Seattle might be a factor going towards the end of the season.
They're dangerous. They know how to win. Pete Carroll has done a magnificent job. I'm surprised. I mean, they lost so many defensive ball players, and their offensive line was so bad. They really rebuilt that team to respectability. To go into Carolina last week and win, that was a hell of a game to win. And now they play. They're a 10-point favorite over San Francisco this week, which it's always tough for a team like Seattle to cover big spreads because they don't score a lot of points. But on the other hand, San Francisco doesn't score much either. So that's a big game for them, a division game. They could easily get in the playoffs, and they'd be dangerous. No question.
I'm going to give you my game of the week, and it's not going to hurt our business any. But I think the best bet of the week is Kansas City. See, they're giving with 15 points or so to Oakland.
Yes.
Oakland is so bad right now. Kansas City always plays well there. They're 15-6. Coming off a bye. Andy Reid is 16-3 coming off a bye. So they're going to show up. And why shouldn't they win that game by 3 touchdowns or more? Everybody else does against the Raiders.
That's it's the only side I can look at. I'm certainly not going to put any money on Oakland. There will be some people that will say, why not tease? If you're going to play a straight bet on Kansas City, why not find a couple teams to tease them with? Knock that number down.
Well, I never bet teasers ever since a friend of mine out of New York used to play teasers, and a friend of mine in Miami and I decided to book them ourselves, and we beat him in 11 out of 13 of them. And so, I think teasers are like bringing somebody home with you at night who looks good at 3 o'clock in the morning, and at 7 o'clock in the morning you can't wait to get the door open.
Oh boy, that's a good one. The old chewing your arm off thing. Okay, I got it. That's a funny one, and I totally agree. With that,
but I just think that there's no such thing as a cinch in the NFL. But this looks like a sure thing to me. It just does. I mean, the Raiders are so bad right now. They got no offense and no defense and no special teams. And they're in terrible shape right now, and it's the time their bags are probably back to the golf course.
And they should be. They're building a nice stadium. I drove by it yesterday. The stadium down here in Las Vegas, they're putting a lot of money into it. It looks really good. It's going up. You see all the cranes and everything. So that's a couple years away, and I know that we really want them to build a good team when they get here, and I hope that happens. But right now, I'm glad they're not here.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Okay, Hank's picks, my picks are on jimfeist.com, and just go there. You get all of our stuff for the weekend. And thanks, Hank. I appreciate your time this week. We'll talk again.
Don't say I never gave our listeners anything. Kansas City. Here I come.
You got it. Thanks, Hank.